Alright guys, how's it going? I hope you're doing very well. I have a pretty cool tutorial for you today, if I do say so myself. And essentially what I'm doing is trying to replicate Blender's Matcap viewer or the viewport shading, and do this inside of Octane render, inside of the render engine, so I can render this out. Now there's a whole bunch of reasons why you might want to do this. Generally Matcaps get used for sculpting and things like this, and I quite like that look. I like the aesthetic of it. And sometimes you get a client saying, can you just give me that render? You don't want to take a viewport render or anything like that, or a screenshot. So what I'm doing here is pretty much trying to replicate it one for one. So this is my render viewport, and it means I can add things like depth of field and stuff like this if I really wanted to. And this is the Matcap viewport. Now, it's not one-to-one, it's pretty near perfect, and I've been playing around with the values, so I've kind of messed up my scene from the beginning. But when it comes to Matcap, just in case you're unaware, they're essentially a material with lighting built in. There's a whole bunch of these. In fact, they come built in with Blender. You can see here we have a whole bunch. Some are really nice. But online, there's obviously a massive catalogue of these. These ones are all free. I think it's 600 different Matcaps. So we can use any one of these as an image file. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly show you the node setup, and one thing I want you to pay attention to is when you actually drop down here, I'm trying to replicate the cavity. So if I take this off, it's pretty boring, and I'm going to put the ridge down a little bit. So I'm using a dirt texture node, but I'll talk you through this and I'll show you the node setup just to save you a little bit of time. So what I'm using here is the Matcap Projection. This is built in with Octane, just search for it. And this is the RGB image, one of these ones that I downloaded. And I just put the projection straight into the projection of the RGB. Now, generally I'll put this into a diffuse material. I don't want any light bouncing or specular or anything like this. Now you can be a little bit artistic, and I'll explain this down the line, and I'll show you a cool couple of tricks. But you can plug this straight into the surface, but like I said, I'm actually using the dirt texture to give that kind of cavity look. So I just plug this into the mount of the first material. And I'm using a texture emission. Now the reason I'm using a texture emission is because I don't have any lights in the scene. Like it says, Matcap have lights built in to the material. So you can see here there's kind of this kind of fall off with the normals. And just to prove, this is my texture environment. It's just a backplate. I don't actually have anything in the environment, and there's no lights in the scene. So that's pretty much the node setup. It's very easy to use. Use the projection Matcap material. Nice and easy. But let me go a little bit deeper. And let me show you a couple of things that you can actually do with it. So I'm going to kind of keep most of this the same, but I'm going to change the diffuse material. And I'm actually going to change this for a toon material. I forgot, I'm not in the render viewport. My tutorial's so good. So I'm going to shift A and I'm going to search for a toon material. Now, generally what you'll find is you need a light with a toon material, but we can actually change this. So I'm going to put the texture into the diffuse, and I'm just going to plug the material out into the first material. Pretty much the exact same setup that we had earlier on. I'll probably leave emission off, and the reason for this is if we go to the toon material node and we change it from toon lights, because we don't have any lights in the scene, and we change this to camera, it actually bounces light from the camera and we get the exact same thing. Now obviously the specular here is pretty high, but you notice that I start to get this kind of artistic look, and the reason for this is because I'm using the toon shader and I have an outline thickness, so I can put this thickness right up and I get a little bit more artistic look. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to show you the toon shader. And obviously because we're using the dirt texture node, we can put the strength up and down and we get this cavity. And that is pretty much it. Now if you don't want the thickness and the specular, you can take this right off, and it probably gives a little bit more natural look. And if I look through the camera, you can see that I've got depth of field and stuff like this on. And that is pretty much how you use the Matcap Projection node. It's very cool. I'll leave all the links in the description so you can actually download this whole folder. Yeah, it's 200 meg or something. It's nothing really. And if you're unaware, if you go to the viewport shader in Matcap, you can actually install Matcaps of your own. So all you do is click on the cog, go to install, and pick the file that you want to install. Same with HDRI images as well. Bonus tip for you. And that's pretty much how to replicate the Matcap look inside of Octane Blender. Now, because we use Blender, we're a little bit of a disadvantage. Things like Cinema 4D, I believe Houdini has it, and I'm pretty certain Modo has it as well. They have a Matcap material. We don't have access to that inside of Blender, so this is why we need to do these steps. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful. If you like it, you know what to do. Take care.